The Puck Portfolio with Andy MacNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. My name is Andy MacNeil. I'm your host. I'm here on weekdays to provide NHL projections, betting advice, strategies, and picks to help you make informed bets throughout the NHL season. This show is, of course, sponsored by NorthStar Bets. You can check them out via the link in the description below. They are available across Canada. They offer early odds on the next day's NHL game. So we'll be talking about Thursday's big slate on this show. We've got 3 games on the docket for Wednesday, March 20th. So let's talk about them really quick. But before we do, let's get into a schedule break. I hope I didn't fake Jake out with a different screen there, but we'll do a schedule breakdown for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. If you've been here before, you know what you're looking at. The rest column tells you how many days rest teams have heading into their games. The load column gives you a little bit more context, like whether a team is playing 2 games in 2 nights, 3 games in 4. You see the Carolina Hurricanes getting set to play their 6th game in 9 nights on Thursday. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I factor this into my projections each and every day. So let's get into the projections as I go through some notes and some news for Wednesday's game. First of all, we've got the Toronto Maple Leafs coming off a loss against the Flyers. They're in Washington taking on the Capitals. The Maple Leafs naturally are the favorite in this one, but Toronto, they're 5-5 straight up in their last 10 games. They've only got regulation wins over Arizona, Montreal, Philadelphia, an overtime win versus the Sabres, and a shootout win over the Rangers. They lost in regulation to Vegas, Philly, Boston twice, and they lost in a shootout against the Carolina Hurricanes. And we know how successful the Capitals have been lately. Not a team I would want to fade in this spot. Charlie Lindgren has been the better of the 2 goalies for Washington this season, and he is confirmed to start for the Caps on Wednesday. Joseph Wall likely starter for Toronto. But the Maple Leafs, they're going to be without Mitch Marner for another game, probably for the foreseeable future. I don't even know if Marner should play another regular season game, if I'm being honest. I think that this is probably a pretty serious injury. And if the Leafs rush him back, it's something that could nag him throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I think they want to be pretty protective of Mitch Marner as we finish up the last few weeks of the regular season here. So no bet on that game. Washington did creep up into the plus 120s, but has since come down, and I think that's the right move. That's where I think the buyback should be. Arizona at Dallas. Of course, Dallas, a big favorite again in this one, and rightfully so. They've won 20 out of 34 home games this season, but only 11 of those wins have come in regulation. And Jake Ottinger, he's struggling lately with an .856 save percentage over the last month. Connor Ingram will start for the Coyotes. Tyler Seguin will return to the lineup for the Dallas Stars. No play in this one for me. I think the line is pretty much right here. Um, and Dallas. I mean, as a home favorite this season, like I said, they've won the majority of games, but they haven't made it easy on themselves, and goaltending has been part of that. Uh, Ottinger recently saying that this season has been really tough for him mentally, the toughest season in the NHL for him yet. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays down the stretch and into the Stanley Cup playoffs. And finally, we've got the Minnesota Wild coming off a 4-0 shutout win over the Anaheim Ducks, taking on the Los Angeles Kings, who defeated the Chicago Blackhawks once again, this time by a score of 6-2. And some news out of Minnesota, as according to Michael Russo of The Athletic, the Wild defenseman Jonas Brodin will have an MRI today, so that's not good news because the Wild are already without Joel Eriksson-Ek, of course. Jared Spurgeon, who is done for the season, not an ideal spot to be in, which is 4 weeks left in the regular season. David Riddick will start for the Kings. But across the board, no value on any sides currently. So no plays for me at the moment for Wednesday's games. But moving on to Thursday, we've got quite a few games on the schedule. Some big, meaningful matchups, especially in the Eastern Conference when it comes to playoff chances and whatnot. Philadelphia in Carolina taking on the Hurricanes. The Flyers, they've been slumping for a while, just 5 wins in their last 16 games heading into Tuesday's matchup. But of course, they got a win over the Maple Leafs 4-3. They almost let the game slip away, jumped out to a 3-0 lead. The Maple Leafs made it close again when they scored with just about 2 minutes left in regulation, but the Flyers held on for the 4-3 win. Carolina, meanwhile, put away the Islanders with some ease on Tuesday, going up 3-0 in the first period. A very late third goal to put them up 3-0. That was a bit of a backbreaker. I think there was 1.3 seconds left on the clock in the period when they scored that goal. They won the game 4-1. No value on this one. I think the Carolina is pretty much priced appropriately, and Philly would have to get a lot higher before I'll back them in a matchup where they are almost certainly going to get outplayed. Some pretty filthy stuff coming out of Carolina recently. The more I watch them, the more I see just how great of an ad Jake Gensel was. Him and Seth Jarvis having a ton of chemistry. If you saw the goal they scored, one of the goals they combined to score on on Tuesday. There was this beautiful give and go where like you think Gensel's going to shoot it at the last second. Everybody does. Every defenseman, the goalie thinks that he's going to shoot it, but he passes it back to Jarvis at the last second for a tap in. Yeah, they're gelling, and Kuznetsov, of course, has looked pretty good too. So yeah, not a team I want to take lightly for sure. As we go down the stretch, they might be looking to chase this Rangers team and win the Metro Division. The Islanders and Red Wings, they're both obviously battling for a playoff spot, and they're going to go head to head on Thursday. New York's playoff odds, according to my projections, sitting at 31%. Detroit sitting at 32%. Obviously, the Red Wings jumped over the Islanders with their win over the Blue Jackets. Unfortunately, because we had the Blue Jackets at a great price, plus 170, they jumped out to a 2-0 lead, outshot the Wings 20-6 in the first period, led 3-2. Of course, Detroit could not go quietly into the night, though. They scored with just I don't know 20 seconds left on the clock to extend the game, put it into overtime, and they got the winner with a bit of interference. I know I'm pretty salty, but there was some interference on that play on the part of Moritz Seider. But anyways. My model says that New York should be a minus 104 favorite if Dylan Larkin is out of the lineup. Of course, the Red Wings captain has been out for a little while here. And based on reports, it sounds like that is pretty likely to be the case. Larkin iffy to start to play in Thursday's game against the Islanders. James Reimer will make another start for the Red Wings. He got the win over the Blue Jackets on Tuesday. But yeah, New York minus 104. That's what the model says. And right now, looks like a pick 'em in this game. Big game between the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins. Both these teams, of course, the Bruins back atop the NHL standings. The Rangers looking like I believe the third place team right now in the overall standings. So this one is a battle of potential President's Trophy winners. I saw somebody, actually it was Pete Blackburn, and I know he's funny and he makes a good point based on that this probably does have a lot to do with it. But he said that recency bias and PTSD were the reasons for people being down on Boston's Stanley Cup chances this season, despite the fact that they're back in first place once again. But I honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they actually grade out as a pretty mediocre team in a lot of categories. I mean, right? They're bottom half of the league in expected goal, or sorry, they're around average and expected goals percentage. They're bottom half of the league in shots on a per 60-minute basis. They don't grade out really great when you compare them, at least looking at their underlying metrics, when you compare them to some of the other contenders. So I think that has more to do with it. And the Bruins showed last season it doesn't matter how many regular season games you win, if you can't put it together in the playoffs, none of that matters. And I think they've been a lot closer to a break even team than their goals for and goals against maybe suggest. So I'm gonna dig into it a little bit more, but yeah, I think that really is the reason why people are down on the Bruins' chances of winning the Stanley Cup this season. But yeah, probably the playoffs and the results last season have a little bit to do with it. Still, they're better than the Rangers in most areas, and they would be a small favorite on neutral ice against the Rangers, but they've got home ice advantage here. So Boston a minus 131 favorite according to the model. Looks like that is pretty much what is showing up at sports books. Uh, First play of Thursday for today's show, Wednesday, is the St. Louis Blues because Ottawa's they've been a brutal road team, but they're good enough on home ice to be a small favorite. Minus 104 according to the model over the Blues at home. St. Louis has been a great home team, not really great on the road, pretty mediocre on the road. But I can bet St. Louis at plus 113 odds, and that's enough value for me in this one. Minus 104, 9-cent edge. I'll take the dog here. Hopefully the Blues have a little bit. Well, we know they've got a little bit more motivation. The Senators are just simply playing out games at this point, and the Blues are actually in the playoff hunt in the Western Conference. So yeah, give me the Blues on the money line at plus 113. That is a three-quarter unit bet for me. Next up, we've got the Chicago Blackhawks at the Anaheim Ducks. And I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit here just to keep the picks together because Chicago is my next pick. And there are some better prices out there, but I'll take the plus 106 at NorthStar Bets. It's good enough for me. And those better prices aren't actually available to me. They're not in my jurisdiction, but if they're in available to you in your jurisdiction, I would recommend shopping around because I saw as good as plus 118 available on Chicago. I don't think Anaheim should be a favorite in this game. The model thinks that the Blackhawks should actually be a minus 107 favorite. Anaheim's been the worst team in the league for a while now. They've scored just 34% of the goals in all situations since the start of February. They also rank dead last in expected goals percentage, 32nd in goals per 60, and 31st in goals against per 60 minutes. Chicago, they've actually been playing some respectable hockey, especially since Connor Bedard returned. And I don't think, like I said, that the Blackhawks should be an underdog here. The Ducks have no home ice advantage. Anaheim won just 28.6% of their games, home games this season. They've lost all three games, not a big sample, but nonetheless, they've lost all three home games in which they closed as a slight favorite. They've had five home games in total where they were the favorite, and they've lost all three where they were, a short favorite. So not going to be a big favorite in this one. They shouldn't be a favorite, in my opinion, against really anybody outside of maybe the San Jose Sharks right now. Anytime they are, you can almost assume that this team is being overvalued. So I'll take Chicago plus 106 on the money line. That's going to be a three-quarter unit play as well. So neither underdog bet, a huge bet by any means. 0.75 units on both the Blues plus 113 and the Blackhawks at plus 106. But yeah, I like the underdogs on Thursday nonetheless. An underdog I'm not going to give a chance to is the New Jersey Devils, at least not at the current odds. I think they are more or less right. But they got another great performance out of Jake Allen on Tuesday. He has started three games. He faced 37, 36, and 38 shots on goal in those games. And he has held the opposition to two goals each time. So pretty good. But the Devils' playoff chances sitting at just 4% right now. So likely too little too late. They should have made this move ages ago. That said, Winnipeg has not looked super strong lately either, ranked 21st in expected goals in all situations since the start of February. I don't think reaching on them here is necessarily a smart move. My model makes them a minus 119 favorite, so probably no play on this one. But just thought there was something worth talking about there because Allen has been very good for the Devils, makes them a little bit more appealing here as we move on down the stretch of the NHL regular season. Finally, just a handful of games to talk about here. Some news out of Florida. So the Predators, they've been rolling lately. They're in Florida taking on the Panthers. The projection that you see on the screen is assuming that Matthew Tkachuk is not going to be in the lineup. Head coach Paul Maurice said he expects Alexander Barkov to be good to go on Monday, but not sure about Matthew Tkachuk, saying that he'll need to see how Tkachuk is doing when he gets on the ice on Thursday. So I guess he is expected to skate, but they got to see how he's doing. He's dealing with an undisclosed injury. I'm guessing the Panthers are probably willing to sacrifice some regular season games in order to make sure that he's healthy for the playoffs. And I would not be surprised to see him sit this one out if he is dealing with something. Obviously, Florida's had a great season, and they don't want to chance anything with arguably their best player, although Barkov has been quite important for the Panthers this season. So, as I mentioned, the price you see on the screen, the projection, the odds, that's with Kachuk out of the lineup, with Barkov in the lineup, assuming Bobrovsky versus Saros. And I just wanted to take that direction because then you can, if Kachuk is in the lineup, you can kind of make the assumption of what he's worth and decide where the line should be. But it just kind of shows you that, regardless of whether he's in the lineup or not, it would take a lot for me to go from the projection that I'm showing now minus 159 all the way up, to showing value on the side of the Florida Panthers. And even with Kachuk out of the lineup, I don't necessarily think there's going to be value on the Nashville Predators. So if anything, the line might move and come down on Florida, and we'll see what happens on Thursday when we learn more about Matthew Tkachuk. The Buffalo Sabres, they're in Edmonton. They fell short on Tuesday, losing to the Vancouver Canucks 3-2. Montreal played Edmonton pretty close on Tuesday. They forced overtime. Sabres have beaten the Oilers recently, but I don't think there's value on either side because naturally Edmonton has played a lot better against weak teams outside of Montreal than they have at home than they have on the road. So yeah, I think this one is, mostly priced right. Edmonton should be around a minus 204 favorite. This Sabres team, their playoff chances are sitting at just 1% after the loss on Tuesday. And yeah, finally, three games to talk about: Montreal and Vancouver. I'm not going to be betting on Vancouver, but I might end up betting on Montreal, despite their awful record as road underdogs this season. My model says the Habs should be a plus 229 underdog. And while I'm going to need up around plus 250 before I'm going to get interested in this, I am seeing them tick up at some other sports books. They are listed as a plus 225 underdog at NorthStar Bets, but I'm looking for, like I said, something around the plus 250 range. We'll see if it gets there. If so, I'll take a chance on the Montreal Canadiens. Tampa Bay, they're probably better than we thought they would be this season, but not interested in laying minus 312 against the San Jose Sharks. And finally, the Seattle Kraken at the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Vegas, they're not playing up to their standards, especially not when you consider their price is minus 185. So nowhere close to where they would need to be playing, the level that they would need to be playing at uh, in order to, maybe see some value on that price. But I'm going to want a lot more than plus 150 to want to go through betting on the Seattle Kraken again. Talked about, Bruins fans maybe having PTSD from last season. Well, if you bet on the Kraken enough this season, you've got some PTSD because, not to mention that last game versus Vegas where they had a 4-2 lead and blew it and lost in overtime. They've lost in overtime a bunch this season, so they're keeping it close in a lot of games, but ultimately can't secure the bag. But yeah, just two plays for Thursday, no plays for Wednesday right now. Nothing has really changed between Tuesday and Wednesday as far as my projections or the market goes. So naturally, no plays on those three games, but two early sides for Thursday's NHL action: the Chicago Blackhawks at plus 106 and the St. Louis Blues at plus 113. Both 3/4 unit plays, 0.75 units. Good luck with your bets, and I will see you on Thursday.